is to connect with the genus loci, or the spirit of place.
Mm-hmm.
Every sort of area has its sort of overarching spirit of place.
Okay.
And to say spirit of place, for instance, spirit of place, my name is Susan. I live here and I would like to be of service. I would like to connect with the nature spirits. And so when you begin to build up this connection with the spirit of place, for instance, here it's about a 5-mile, 6-mile radius overlooking this particular upland region.
Uh-huh.
So that's how I began to connect with the elementals here, is to honor this overarching spirit of place. And then after a while, you find that you're guided, and this genus loci will sort of guide you on walks or places to go, to feel inspired, to meet different nature spirits or different rocks or trees that will help you awaken or help you to expand or help you with your difficulties. These beings like to receive our questions. And if we...
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hello and welcome to Accentuate the Positive. So wonderful to be with you again. I have the delicious songstress and extraordinary being Susan Raven with me today. Welcome to the show, Susan.
So good to be here. Thank you.
In the UK. Where are you in the UK?
I live on the uplands of mid Wales.
Wow.
And it's in Wales, the land of Merlin.
Ah.
And it's a misty day. The hills are covered in mist and the trees are turning gold and red.
Oh, how beautiful. It's a misty day here in Sydney too, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you. And please remember, if you're enjoying the shows, to like and subscribe and leave a comment if you're listening to them on YouTube. I love hearing your comments, and share them with your friends and family. Today, we're going to talk all about the elemental kingdom and much more, nature spirits and singing and all sorts of things. Let me read you Susan's bio and then we'll get into it. Susan Raven is a singer-songwriter, musician, author and speaker who has produced CDs entitled Glittering Cities and Raven Song. They are regularly played on local and regional radio stations, including the BBC. She is a long-time student of anthropology and an experienced workshop facilitator by Rudolf Steiner for seeing into the supersensible realms. I love that you call it the supersensible realms. Well, I'll ask you about that. And has also trained with Dorian Schmidt, director of Body Dynamic Research Institute. Susan is the author of Nature Spirits, The Remembrance, A Guide to the Elemental Kingdom, featured in many magazines, including Cygnus, not magazines I know, Nexus I know, Star and Furrow, and Caduceus. Is that how you say it?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
I've just written a couple of things down off your website because they were so beautiful. The nature spirits are waiting to be reunited with us. And as emissaries of higher spiritual beings, they wish to be of great assistance to us at this time. But we have to step into their world and meet them in their own territory. It is time to engage in dialogue and relearn a living world wisdom, the elemental kingdom, at this critical time in our evolution. Oh, so beautiful and so true. And another thing you've said on your website, the task of the troubadour has always been to listen to the wind and anticipate the future, to discern the fine nuances of a spiritual age and to play the dual roles of receiver and transmitter. So Susan, how did you meet the elemental kingdom? How did they introduce themselves to you, or how did you introduce yourselves to them?
Well, for most people, a spiritual path starts with a crisis. And so I came to, it's anthroposophy, not anthropology.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Anthroposophy. And this is the philosophy and the work of Rudolf Steiner. So my crisis came sort of 33. That's a sort of classic age for an initiation and for growing into your spiritual path. And I found my way to Rudolf Steiner's work. Now, for those of you who don't know who Rudolf Steiner is, or was, he was a tremendous seer. He was a very skilled scientist, philosopher, but he was also born with the faculty to see into the supersensible realms, these invisible quantum realms. And later on in the talk, I'll be going into these different realms. But he was born with this faculty. He also had the intellect and the philosophical insight to gather together science and spirit. He's best known for his Steiner schools, the Waldorf schools, yes. But his ability developed into this extraordinary spiritual precision. He could look into the quantum realms and describe what the beings of these spiritual realms were creating and impulsing into the material world. So I came to this work, and I then found my way to his lectures called Man a Symphony. And these are the most exquisite lectures that describe the activity of the elemental kingdom. And this triggered a very, very deep remembrance, that wonderful feeling that so many of us know when we come across an exquisite truth that makes you say, oh, of course.
Yeah.
I know this.
Yeah.
This is a deep and profound truth.
Yeah.
So I was, at the time, I was living in London, and I was part of the music scene, the acoustic music scene. I was busily performing my songs and looking for the record deal, a publishing deal. And when I came to Rudolf Steiner's work, and I began to sort of swim in this amazing spiritual world that he wrote about. When you come to, we all have our own stream. I knew that this was my stream, my spiritual stream to be swimming in. And after a while of immersing myself in his work, my songwriting changed completely. It developed and it expanded, and suddenly I found I was signed by a major music publishing company. And it was through Anthroposophy that my music and my lyric writing was enriched.
Can you explain to me and others what Anthroposophy is?
So anthro, that's the history of the human, and Sophia, wisdom, the wisdom of the human being in the spiritual world. So Anthroposophy infused my musical work, and suddenly I was on this great trajectory into developing music. And then the person who signed me left the company, and this is a classic thing, deep and profound disappointment, because I was not going to go on this apparently not going on this life's mission of being signed by a record company and go. So, and there's nothing like some deep disappointment to really drive you further into your spiritual path.
Absolutely, Susan. And this is happening for so many people on the planet right now in many ways. Disappointment in that their businesses failed, or that disappointment in the political system. Anyway, deep disappointment happening a lot. But yeah, it does. It drives you into
It
another.
drives you. It drives you into yourself. And what are the capacities that I have? What are my capacities to get through this? And what am I here for? I chose and I was chosen to incarnate at this time.
Right.
What is it I'm here to bring?
Exactly.
So that's when, after this sort of disappointment, it was very clear that living in London, and which was amazing. I mean, I met people from all over the planet.
How long ago was this? What year was this?
I left London in 1998, so I've been up in the uplands of Wales now for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And when I came to Wales, this is when I really began to immerse myself in the elemental kingdom, because it's still very wild here.
Wow.
And wild uplands, pasture land, and and then there was this sort of feeling that grew, the gut feeling that grew, that I had to bring an understanding of the elemental kingdom and the nature spirit to people in a way that was accessible. Because Rudolf Steiner's work is pretty intense and it's not easy reading. But in a way, it doesn't need to be, because the very understanding and the grasping of his work develops and nurtures and matures one's soul. But I felt, because of the ecological crisis we're in, it is so important that we find out about the elemental kingdom and the nature spirits and begin working with them. And of course, this year and recently, we've had these huge outpourings and gatherings around the planet in the cities. And on these plaques are, I am a sovereign being, and freedom. So after this huge turbulent time that we're in, how do we meet this freedom? How do we work with our sovereignty? And after the turbulence, who are we going to be and how are we going to work? And I feel the most profound and important thing to do is to begin working with the earth herself. There needs to be working with the angelic realm and working with the earth, working with the wisdom of the earth.
Absolutely. Have you heard of Dr. Zach Bush?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So would you include the biome as part of the elemental kingdom?
Yes. I mean, we have the super sensible ecosystems and the physical ecosystems, and they're sort of interwoven with each other. They're completely interwoven with each other. And for at least 200 years, our way of perceiving the world around us has been so narrow and so thin. And the decisions that we've made in this thin, narrow corridor of perception has caused untold ecological disaster.
Absolutely.
So the key thing now is to expand this corridor or this sphere of perception. And our ability to connect in with the elemental kingdom and the earth. She has the wisdom. She knows how to get out of the impasse we're in at the moment.
Absolutely.
And it needs to start with the schools. And I'll give you an example, 2 examples, very moving examples. I have 2 friends who are kindergarten Steiner teachers. And one of them, she puts a large earthenware pot of porridge outside in the playground. And the children put their little paws in there and go and put porridge under the trees for the gnomes. And they decide together, the children, they come together and they work together as a little team. Where are we going to build the shrines for the gnomes? Where are we going to build the homes for the elementals? And then another teacher says that she works with them and they perceive and speak about the elementals, the gnomes, the fairies, as a matter of fact. It is fact. And it's this matter of a fact that needs to be nurtured from that very age. And it doesn't need to be dropped. It needs to be nurtured and expanded so that when we move out of this turbulence and into the future, we go in this tri-form. We work with the elementals with us and around us and below us, and the angelic kingdom above us. And we work as a team, because human beings for so long have been in this state where we believe we have, when we observe nature around us, we have to fire our intellectual arrows. We have to fire this quiver of intellect at something to work out what it is. Now we need to develop what I call reverse will, which is quietening our will forces, creating a space like a stage where the curtains come apart, creating this place that I can describe as stroking the baby's head, this soft place of honor and openness, and allow the beings of nature to come to us with their wisdom. We can do both. It's not putting the intellect and the questioning aside, of course, but finding the right question is the most important thing. But it's quietening this will force so that we can begin to hear the language of nature, discern its vocabulary, and begin this dialogue. And I'll give you an example. For instance, what I've been doing with various colleagues is that we've been looking into tree diseases. And we summon the being of the tree itself. We summon the beings of the pathogens, the fungi, and we then summon the being of the disease itself. And send out the questions, go into reverse will, open the stage, and invite the wisdom to come to us. So it's agreeing on a methodology and using the rigors of science and having a set, well, it's a mobile methodology, but agreeing on this methodology, and again, using the heart, the third eye, and the solar plexus, these three cauldrons of inspiration, these three key powers in the human being, using these three as instruments of diagnosis. And also using them when one goes down into the heart and you send out a beam from your heart to, let's say, a tree or a rock or a stone. This ray of pure attentiveness is like a cable of communication. And you're allowing this give and take between you and the being of the phenomena.
I've got a big pot out here with some gardenias in it that are dying. One's died, and I sent it healing energy, and I fed it, and I watered it, and I did all this stuff, but I didn't think to ask it what it needed. You're just like reminding me, I didn't ask it. I didn't speak to it. I didn't communicate. I just tried to
We
heal
think-
it.
Yes.
I didn't ask it. I should have asked it, because one is well and truly dead. The other one, there's two plants side by side. One died.
Mhm.
And then I've got another pot, an equally big pot on the other wall, which is thriving. And I just didn't think to ask it. I'll have to go speak to it after this.
Yes, and as I said, finding that you find the question, you send the question, and then usually we're sort of straining every nerve to hear what the answer is. But it's this whole thing of just spinning back into reverse will.
Absolutely.
And so many of us find it difficult to go into this reverse will or quieten the will forces.
Yeah. Reverse will.
So that's so when we see these plaques that say freedom and sovereignty, it's, how do we meet it? And how do we take it into the future? Because I believe the earth can heal herself quite quickly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
When there's enough of us that then go back into the heart and go to her and say, well, what can we do?
Yeah.
And of course, this station programs like yours, like Rick at Buddha at the gas pump, so many people now are interviewing people all over the world that have ideas, have solutions, have the imagination and inspiration and tuition to pull us out of this impasse. And
Gosh, absolutely. I had a beautiful man on the show, Australian guy, lives in Perth, David Kennett, and he has a business called Aurea, Earth Frequencies. And he does what you're talking about, but he doesn't know it. Like, he knows it, but he just says he's talking to God. He divines, and he says, God tells me where to go. And what he did was he bought this absolutely, there's a lot of land, especially in Australia, where there's been mines, and they've just desecrated. So this completely desecrated land that was just salt, it was white with salt. And people were like, you can't grow anything on this land. And he just talked to I said to him, you're talking to the nature spirits, you're talking to the element. And he goes, I'm talking to God. And I'm like, okay, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, he's like planted thousands and thousands of trees, and they're flourishing, absolutely flourishing. And he's just regenerated the land. And because he's communicating with the land, with the spirits and the elementals and the land. It's beautiful.
That's great. So he's seeing it as this great entity of the God. I mean, one can describe, the universe is, it's one vast being, one huge, but it's a plurality. It's a plurality of hierarchies of angels or great intelligences that comes down in layers. It's like the layers of God. And some people connect in that way with this with the great entity, and others see it as a plurality and sort of hone in on different areas of the plurality. One can describe our universe as one great radiant intelligent space that is full of wisdom. I see the elementals as the blue collar workers. They're the last reverberation of the cosmic creative word that underlies all existence. They're the living connective tissue. They exist between the implicit and the explicit, the invisible and the visible, and between the quantum and material world. They're right on that nexus.
Wow.
And they're the ones that are holding form in its place. So you have the higher hierarchies that are the imagination. They are the imaginers. They imagine the ash tree. They imagine the gardenia. And then this imagination comes down through the octaves of manifestation and condensation into the form of this imagination. And it's the elementals that are holding this form in place. Because matter doesn't create form, it fills the spaces and the contours organized by these invisible forces. So, and it's lovely that you've brought this story, the way the trees are now growing out of this desolate place. I mean, I recently run a workshop, and a lady from South Africa was saying that she and her friends they'd bought this land that was desert, and it was, it was a dying land. And they worked with the nature spirits, and especially the spring spirits.
And they began as in water spring, or as in weather spring? Okay.
The water spring. The water hadn't flowed for years, but they worked with the water spirits and the spring spirits and said, we're here to heal the land. Please work in co-creation and collaboration with us. And after a while, the spring started flowing. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Makes me cry.
Because these beings are they've been pushed out of our conversation for so long. They've been ridiculed, and a curtain of, I would call, fear and ridicule has been, and they've been closed off. So therefore they've been left in limbo. And and of course the adversary forces have taken hold. They know all about the elementals as well. They've taken hold of the elementals. And the elementals are having to do time, if you like, or they're having to uphold things that are anti-life, as well as the ones that are holding that are pro-life. But to go back to this farm in South Africa, it didn't take long. It was sort of after 18 months, 2 years, everything began to come back. The animals, the insects, everything came back. But it started off with this profound heart connection with the spirit of the springs of the water. And and the two farmers it was about how they look at something. Not looking at this land, how much money can I get through this, and measuring it. How many hectares is this? It's who can I collaborate with here, and what life-giving expression of nature can we create here that will be of benefit for all. So we need to change. If it's about changing our thinking.
Have you seen the movie The Biggest Little Farm?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I watched it the other day. It's everything you're talking about. It's everything you're talking about. It's a couple's dream to have a farm, and she was very enthusiastic. She just wanted to put everything on there, fruit trees and everything, and every manner of fruit trees and all manner of animals, and try and make a living out of it. And it took 7 years, but the natural order of things started to come into place. So they didn't want to use pesticides when they grew the fruit, and they tried to sell the fruit. The birds ate the fruit. And then the snails devastated. But it just, after about 7 years, the balance just started to hum, so that the birds ate the snails instead of the fruit. And, it's just incredible how nature just has its balance. Yeah, just, it's a beautiful film. Makes me cry again. I'm more teary. But the biggest Little Farm, it did quite well. I think I bought it on streaming, but they weren't so much talking about communing with the elementals. They did have some guru that was helping them, and then he died early in the piece. He was like 2 years in, and then he left his body. But yeah, maybe he was talking to the elementals, he just didn't tell them.
Nature is generating energetic fields that communicate everything in nature's doing. And the only ones who are not plugged in, of course, is ourselves. And the minute we begin to connect in with this telepathic information that's going on the whole time, that's our way out of the impasse. But in a way, I mean, if we look at this as a great sweep of history, I mean, our ancient ancestors, of course, were, and many of the indigenous people of today, they're holding this wisdom, and it's been for the benefit of us all. But let's look at our, let's say, our Celtic ancestors of Northern Europe. I mean, all through the ancient art, there are glyphs of nature spirits and these beings that live in the rocks and the trees and the woods. So, you know, in our ancient past, we were more in this sort of plurality. We weren't individuals. We were fixed into a tribal consciousness that was then fixed into the earth. And for our evolution, we individuals, it's the path of learning to be the individual. I mean, we needed to learn to use our intellect, and we needed to learn to become this I am presence within a single physical body. I mean, that was part of our evolutionary lesson. But of course, it's gone too far now. And now that we have learnt to think as an individual and be an individual, we now need to offer that our individuality in loving service to the earth. That individuality now needs to be shot through with a shimmer of connectivity and loving service.
Absolutely. Oh, I love the way you put that. Yeah, I love the way you put that. I was listening to someone defending our right to be individuals. I think they were talking about a doctor talking about a mask and how it's taking our individuality away.
Yes.
And defending that right to be an individual. And I was thinking about what she was saying. I was thinking, wow, we've defended that right to be an individual for so long, you know, for so long. Yeah, I love the way you said that. So we do, as humans, we explore separateness, and then we defend our right to be individuals and separate. But how can we, as we emerge into a new world, a new age, how can we utilize that individuality in communion with each other? Yeah, offer service to the earth.
Yes, we need to come back into the family of being, you know. And the thing is that there is, you know, there's been a huge, over the past 20, 30 years, this huge impulse for self-development and self-improvement. And of course, we can be wonderfully polished and bright and shiny and self-developed rather, but we're on a dying planet, or a, you know, poisoning planet.
Exactly.
So this self-development has to include what is above us in the angelic realm and what is around us in the ecological realm as well. We can't just develop the self. It has now to be in this tri-form. And, you know, for so many years, the ether has been dropped out of the system. We've had the angels, you know, after the Newtonian science, we've had the angels up in heaven and the physical earth and the chemical and physical science that has been developed. But there's like a chain in the link has been dropped out, which is the ether, that which links the two. And so what do I mean by the ether? When one begins to develop this seership, or you develop the communication, there is what I've already described, this tuning of the heart forces and the quietening of the will, so one can receive information and receive inspiration. And then there's also the going out towards nature in an honorable and with honorable inquiry and respectful inquiry into this world, because the sum of the Earth's ether is the nature spirits and elementals. So what do they look like? So when we begin to go into the ether is a place of mobility and conductivity, is the best way of describing it. It's where the shimmering lights are. Mm-hmm. It's when we begin to see an aura around human being, which is like seeing that shimmer on a hot mirage, a hot day. That's what one begins to see. And
is it...
Sorry,
oh, well, I'm just thinking, I sit here and look out my window. I don't have much of a garden, just really a courtyard with some plants. But I see the shimmer. Like I see, I've done it many times. I just blur my vision and stare, and I see this multicolored shimmer, just in the atmosphere, Like I've got these 3, or about 6 or 8 of them actually, big strelitzias, like giant strelitzas just here. And that I feel like I talk to them. I don't listen to them. I should listen to them more. I do more listening to the plants. Yes. But I see the shimmer. So just with the ether, so there's the etheric body and then there is the astral body. Do you want to talk about what the difference is? And
okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, because that's very key, and I'm glad you've asked that question. So we have the physical, we have the physical form is the last reverberation, as I said, that drops down into the physical. But just before that, we have the etheric forces. Mm-hmm. And this is where the elementals are really in the center of their task. This is their task. So this is where the life forces are. This is where there's movement, gesture, color forms, and streaming. It's the best way of streaming. Mm-hmm. It's often called the life ether, chemical ether, numbers ether, light ether. This is the shimmering place. This is where you will see the shimmer, and you can see the forces streaming in that are downloading the creative information into the physical world. Mm-hmm. And you say you see this shimmer, you'll see sort of whirls, scintillating whirls of life around the trees and the plants. And so that's the sort of living plant world. In a way, what one sees in the physical is not dead, but it's the corpse of the life force. Mm. Mm-hmm. You know, it's stopped. It's slowed down. Slowed down.
Yeah, it's the slow. Yeah, I'm just thinking about people that have had near-death experiences that talk about being in this world where the plants, where the natural world is just unbelievable. It's like light. Yes. And the shimmer, and it's the etheric world. It's almost like in that world, the ether is the last point, whereas in this world, the physical is the last point. Is this making sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct. And, you know, manifestations of matter reveal themselves in space at varying speeds of time.
Right.
And it's at the ether that one is this sort of variation of time before it drops down into physical. So the more one seeks the ether, or you ask a plant, as I say, you go into this respectful reverse will and say, please show me your becoming. Please show me
your becoming.
Please show me your becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a while, you will begin to see the struts and the struts of shimmer and the streaming that's going on, and that will be the ether. And then after a while, enough experience of seeing the becomings, a new vocabulary begins to unfold and emerge and sit in your consciousness. So the astral is more about beings. This is the astral world. The shimmer becomes more translucent. We then move out into vast space. We then move into the realm of beings, the great creator beings. One in the astral, one feels that you're being addressed, being looked at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you have this feeling you're being observed by, you know, a lofty being.
Right. So does a plant have an astral body or not, just an etheric body?
A plant has an etheric body, but it also, the astral field of the entire earth is a sort of a communal astral field for the plant world. Whereas a human being has an etheric, an astral, and of course an I am presence.
Right.
And a soul, of course.
And there's different names. You know, I've had this discussion before. There's soul and then there's spirit. How would you define the spirit in this context? Where does the sit?
Okay, there would be the spirit of the earth, Gaia.
But I mean our spirit, because people talk about
I see.
Spirit. Yeah, like our soul and our spirit. I've always seen the soul like the car body that is incarnate in all these different time-space realities. I don't know. I never really know where the spirit is. People talk about the spirit, our spirit, my spirit.
Okay. The spirit or the I am presence. That is your connection with God. I mean, that is your Sir George Trevelyan, who was a great anthroposophist, he said, our I am present is our droplet of God.
Mm-hmm.
It's our own droplet of God. And then our soul is this great memory of all our experiences, of all our incarnations and our feelings and our this personal experience, our sort of the Akashic record of our series of incarnations. And then our etheric body, we have an etheric body elemental that looks after the workings of our body.
Yeah. Have you heard of Maggie Hamilton? No.
Yes, I have.
Oh, yeah, you have. Did you write in her book? Did she contact you for, she wrote this fabulous book. It took her 20 years to write it. And she got all these different people to put their bit in. And so I gave her a piece, 20 years ago, having the experience of seeing seeing the fairies, if you like, the elementals that were pertaining to my body, like sort of seeing these little lights. And so they're looking after the physical form being an extension of Gaia herself, made up of the same elements, also is attended to by the elementals.
I picked out this really beautiful quotation from Rudolf Steiner that for me just shows our deep and profound connection with Gaia. So I'll just give you this quotation. And if a being with eyes organized like those of the present day had looked at Earth, he would not yet have been able to see man. Man was still a spirit being. He floated as a spirit around the earth and took into himself the finest substances from the environment of the earth. Then gradually he densified so far that he could descend to where the earth had already become solid. A man was not born as he is today, but he was, so to say, brought forth out of Mother Earth herself. So we are children of the earth, and there's this deep within us is this trauma of the separation, you know, this separation from her. And one just has to look at sort of the modern media. There is so much there that pulls us away and disconnects us with the living earth. And there's so much invested in stopping us from feeling that sorrow and addressing that sorrow of separation. So there's a great damming up of this sorrow and this sense of separation. And I'll just give you an example. Earlier on in our talk, I was talking about how the kindergarten teachers were nurturing the children, to the young ones, to keep their connection with the elemental kingdom. I was speaking to another teacher recently who looks after children who've been expelled from school. And she looked after these children from a town in south of England, Slough. And she was working with sequencing, and some of them didn't even know the names of the seasons.
Really?
They didn't know the names of the seasons. And it's like, what's happening to the trees, miss?
Right.
That level of disconnection, no wonder they are so stressed, and they simply can't concentrate in a modern day school because of what is being taught there, and the lack of education that connects us to the earth.
Absolutely. You know, there's an amazing, it's a reasonably new documentary out on YouTube called Earthing. It was produced by the guy who invented cable television. And he just offers that connection, that physical connection to the earth, as the most profound healing. And, watching that documentary, it makes you realize, you know, you're talking about a connection in you know, a connection in sort of attention ways, but just like physically connecting to the earth, that all shoes, pretty much all shoes today, had rubber soles. And so you're completely insulated from the earth herself. And he was saying that a lot of our pain and suffering is because of that, because we are part of her as an electromagnetic grid, that we need to connect to her to sort of run our energy through her, and then up, you know, like to connect physically and electromagnetically. It's so profound. And so, yeah, that movie changed my life. I made a commitment to put my feet on the ground every day. I haven't actually achieved that. But yeah.
It's true. It takes time. I mean, you know, if one comes from a stressful situation, or what you've been in front of the computer for a long time and you feel dried up, basically, you know, going out to the earth and sitting under a tree, it takes about 15 minutes. After 15 to 20 minutes, you can feel like a fomentation from the earth, like she's just pulling these these drying effects. She's just pulling them into the earth, and she's constituted to absorb these uneasy offerings.
Mm.
And she takes them in for us. And if we do it consciously, like, gracious Mother Earth, please receive these uneasy offerings, transform them with your grace and power, and return them, please, to me as useful thoughts and deeds.
Beautiful.
So if one does it consciously, that grounding, then I find it's even more powerful. And it's like this fomentation. They take them, she pulls away this negativity and then replenishes us. And yes, and also sort of going to water, spending time with the water.
I was just gonna say
obviously
that.
with stream.
I do that because, you know, I've got the beach down the road. I live in Sydney. I do that with the ocean. When I get inside her, I just love her to bits. I thank her. I just immerse myself in earth, in the form of water, and just have a love affair with the ocean. Just
Yes,
a love affair with
it's
the ocean.
yes. I mean, the minute you mother sea, mother water, you know, and you just abandon yourself to her, it's just such an exquisite caress.
Absolutely. Yes. Such an exquisite caress. Such an exquisite caress. Oh, wow. Just reminder. Yeah. A reminder of my commitment to put my feet on the earth every day, and I haven't done it. But
and also with our thinking, and of course, going back to the texture of the etheric and the what is happening in our soul, when you begin to awaken this seership and this perception, and you develop this capacity for looking into the etheric world, you begin to see the consequences of your thoughts, feelings, and deeds very clearly. And going into heart coherence, you begin to then see these sort of waves of the shimmer and the light going out, and how this actually affects the morphic field of your area and the morphic field of, you know, your surroundings. But of course, we're under very stressful conditions at the moment, and of course, finding this heart coherence is quite some challenge at the moment. But we really help the earth.
It is, unless it isn't.
Yes.
I think it's easy to find your heart coherence under any condition, because it's who you are. It's just who you are. So what is your perspective on what's happening with the virus in regards to the elemental world and biome, and what do you think about everything that's happening in the world like that?
I think when we had the early lockdown was exquisite. Just the peace and the quiet was extraordinary, wasn't it? We could hear the universal hum of the creation of Earth, because everything just stopped. Yeah. And it was exquisite to see these clear blue skies and to actually stop and see what's possible. In fact, going back to this phrase, reverse will, we were all shoved into reverse will, whether we liked it or not, you know. And it was very healing, and in a way. We were forced into this peace. And
it's still quite quiet out there. I was just looking on Facebook today. A friend of mine was reunited with his family in Bali. He came out here to do, he's a sound healer, came out here to do a workshop and got stuck here. And they couldn't come anyway. So they've been separate for 6 months. So he was posting him being at the airport, and, you know, yay. And the airport was absolutely empty. Like there was no one behind him. So it's still quite quiet in many ways. Another friend came from Scotland. Her mother had died, and she said the same in Scotland. The airport was completely empty. All the planes grounded, and plane was quite empty. So it's still quite quiet out there. Not in Sydney, I've got to say, not where I live. They're buzzing around like bees and business as usual. But out there in the world, it's, especially at airports, busy places, stillness.
Yes, and being on pause. On pause. And being on pause is a very creative place to be. And it's, this contemplative, who am I and why am I here? And, what is my task is so important for us. And, we're human, and of course we have fears, and of course we have doubts and anger and frustration. But it's how we manage it and how we go forward with this. And to understand how our thoughts, feelings, and actions affect everything around us. And being on pause has helped so many people to really contemplate that. And it's too much to say, well, I'm going to have to be in heart coherence all the time. We're learning how to get back into heart coherence. But when we lose our temper or we lose our center, how do we manage what we create etherically with our anger or our sadness and our sorrow? And there's this very beautiful phrase that comes from a service called the Act of Consecration of Man. And it's, may the threshold be guarded, a wall hinder my error from streaming round me. All evil be taken from my words, thoughts, and deeds, and goodwill pour into them. So it's, you consciously create this sphere around you. You know that you're human, and of course you're going to be pulled this way and that, but you consciously put up this membrane so it's not affecting nature too much. So that's one thing, is just to sort of be conscious of what we are raying out in the etheric. Also, I feel there's, as we all know, there's this huge awakening, and also there is gifting by ruling will is the best way I can describe it. And that is, we know that raying down, there is this new light. And it's described in so many ways. It's described as, moving from the third dimension to the fifth dimension.
Right.
It's described as a rapture. It's described as a new earth. In the stream...
Say that again, ruling will. That was so beautifully said. Say that again. Gifting by ruling will.
Will, yes.
But can you explain that a bit?
We have...
Like moving from the third to the fifth, but...
Yes. So gifting by ruling will, we have... ruling will is what is coming in from the highest hierarchies, from the Christ.
Thy will, not my will.
Yes.
Right.
So it is the ruling will of creation, raying down onto the planet. And then there's human will and everything in between. So, for instance, it's not a static communication between the creator beings and the elementals. I mean, if it was just like one sort of bolt of lightning giving the same information the whole time, the earth would never change, and there would be no reason for human beings to incarnate again and again, because we wouldn't gain anything. So it's where ruling will and human will collide, and that's what creates our reality. But at the moment, as we go into the new earth, there's this new pulse of what I would call ruling will that is coming in, and we are accelerated evolution at the moment. In anthroposophy, this is described as a new wave of elementals that are coming into the earth.
Oh, okay.
These are called the Christ elementals. And so there's this new form of elementals that are raying in, that are here to help to enliven the earth more, enliven the dying earth existence. And Rudolf Steiner speaks of these coming through the sun. And he says, he puts it in the sense of the Christ. The Christ is living in the etheric field of the earth at the moment. And these Christ elementals and the Christ consciousness is awakening the scientists, the politicians, the businessmen. It's no longer Christ's looking after the suffering souls, which of course the Christ does, but it's also about this Christ force really awakening people out of their stupor. And we can see this. It's like there's this ray of morality is shuddering through everything, awakening, especially in the scientific community. There are some amazing people, as Greg Braden and Nassim Haramein, William Tiller. These are profound, powerful beings that have incarnated at the moment that are, I would say, really immersed in these new elementals. And of course, there's the new inventions that are being stamped on, the new free energy technology that we hear so much about. Now, if you're an inventor, I bet every one of these new inventions, the inventors are working with the elementals and the nature spirits. They may not speak in that vocabulary, but they are being inspired by these beings, these new beings that are raying into the earth to awaken us.
And where do the extraterrestrials fit into this, that have, you know, information and technology to give humans as they evolve? I know that many have said that they're holding back the technology because we need to evolve our consciousness first.
Yes, yes.
We already have technology where we can wipe everyone, you know, everything out. But
that's the fine balance, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there is technology, amazing technology, but if used nefariously, it's so dangerous. You know, propulsion technology, which is beyond motors, and so how does the elementals and the extraterrestrial, how do they dovetail?
That's an interesting thought. Obviously, you know, the universe is inhabited by, you know, so many beings that manifest in such different and varying forms. But like all of us, like us humans, the extraterrestrial beings, these high, loving, light-filled and honorable beings, I mean, they're doing the ruling will of God as well.
Absolutely.
They are under ruling will.
Absolutely.
But their civilizations is completely shot through with morality, where, you know, a sort of heavenly morality and love. Whereas we're sort of scrabbling around, finding our way to love. And it's interesting. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think with many of them, not all, the establishment of the oneness of all is just the reality and not something that they're seeking. It's something they live. And then once they've established in, you know, that we're all one source, now what? Now what can we create through our intellect and will and a creative process, but as humans, we're just waking up to that fact, and that we're all one energy. We all come from the same source.
Yes. And yes, I was just watching an interview with the makers of the new Thrive 2.
Thrive, yeah. What did you think of that?
I haven't actually seen the film yet. I just saw a little bit of an interview, and this was really interesting, just veering back to the new technologies. The inventors are these very enlightened and amazing people that have obviously been inspired and connected with the nature spirits and the elementals and ruling will. And how tentative they are to hand these over to the big money. You know, who who can I hand this exquisite technology over to? And there's such reticence to hand it over. But of course, now that hopefully there will be millionaires, billionaires who are moral and see that our forward movement has to take into account everybody. It has to take into the earth.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I would say the Christ elementals are, you know, permeating the billionaires and millionaires now.
Yeah. Gosh, I hope so. I had a conversation with Zane Daniels about this, I think last year. You know, just seeing that too. You know, we get so much information about big corporations ruling the world and coming from greed and separateness, consciousness, rather than seeing that as a reality. You know, creating or seeing a reality where people with lots of money, billionaires, are being inspired by the ruling will, as you call it, and then understand the unity of all, and regardless of ridicule or loss of money, they're investing in technologies that serve all. They don't just serve the bottom line bank account of the shareholders. They serve all, the earth and the humanity and the animals. You know, they serve everyone and everything. So it's a good thought, Susan. It's a good place to put our focus as we focus on all that goes wrong in our world. It's a great place to put our focus on these scientists and billionaires, as you say, waking up and being inspired by that Christ consciousness, unity consciousness. You know, just getting back to what you said right at the beginning of this about the elementals wanting to commune with the humans and how we've been separated. One of the people I had on the show, I talk about a lot, Garnet Schulhauser, taken out of his body by his spirit guide, Albert, who appears to him as a homeless man, and flown around the cosmos in his astral body, meeting all kinds of consciousnesses in outer, you know, and other planets and on the earth, has met many of the elemental spirits, the Fae and the little people. I don't know, what do you call them? The she. And the Sasquatch and mermaids, like incredible. It's incredible. It blows your mind, really. All these things that are supposedly mythical are apparently real. And all of them have said, we would love to be back in communication with humanity. But up until now, humanity, well, not all of history, but for the last era, has just been too violent. And they separated themselves from humanity because of the consciousness, really, the violence and the... Yeah, but hopefully soon that we'll commune with them again. And I know lots of people do. Yeah. So obviously you're one of them. Do you commune with them and talk to them? Do you see them?
Yes. I would say one of the key things to do for anybody who would like to start or who's new to this subject is to connect with the genus loci, or the spirit of place. Every sort of area has its sort of overarching spirit of place.
Okay.
And to say, spirit of place, for instance, spirit of place, my name is Susan. I live here and I would like to be of service. I would like to connect with the nature spirits. And so when you begin to build up this connection with the spirit of place, for instance, here it's about a 5-mile, 6-mile radius overlooking this particular upland region. So that's how I began to connect with the elementals here, is to honor this overarching spirit of place. And then after a while, you find that you're guided, and this genus loci will sort of guide you on walks or places to go, to feel inspired, to meet different nature spirits or different rocks or trees that will help you awaken or help you to expand or help you with your difficulties. These beings like to receive our questions. And if we can go into reverse will and allow their vocabulary and their language, which is a language of imagery and feelings, fine nuances of feelings, they communicate with us, or they read us by the feelings that coat our thoughts. So it's
Feelings that coat our thoughts. Oh God, your vernacular, your vocab is so beautiful. The feelings that coat our thoughts.
Yes. So that's how they get to communicate with us. And then after a while, the genus loci will then ask you to help the area. And I'll give you an example of that. Recently, I came in from a walk, and then I could feel I felt this pushing to go out walking again. And I was directed to an area of this radius that I very rarely go to. There was a little dell that I've driven past many, many times but never discovered. And I found it in deep distress that some rogue farmers had thrown bags of dead lambs into the stream. The British telecom engineers had thrown scrap cable into the stream. The whole place was really, really in profound distress. And it took us pretty much the whole day to clean up this place. But afterwards, you know, we sang songs, we sprayed some rescue remedy, and just sat by the stream in a loving way. And the elementals were just so happy. But I'd never have worked that out unless I'd built up this strong connection with the genus loci. Because sometimes the world's problems look so big and so enormous, but if everyone just connected with the genus loci, spirit of place, where they live, even if you're in a town or a city, it doesn't matter, you will be led to places or to people where you can evolve and grow on this path.
There's this phenomena happening with your microphone. It just goes into a different resonance every now. Well, it's done it twice. It's really interesting. Just really interesting. I think it has something to do with them, actually.
Yes.
So, okay, Susan, what about people that are living in cities and there's not a lot of natural world around them? Is there a genus loci of a city, a built-up area? There is.
Yes, there's an angel of a town.
Right.
Let's call it the angel of the town or the spirit of the town. And if you're living in a city, yes, you will be led to certain parks or certain trees that are inhabited by usually the city trees. They're formidable nature spirits. They're tough, rough, strong beings. But usually with a city, it's about the genus loci will help you connect with other humans.
Oh, wow.
You know, this connection with other beings who are resonating with the same love for nature, or even putting you in touch with people who are ready to receive this kind of information. So it's about people. It's about meeting other souls.
That's so beautiful, because so often I have a online tribe. So often I hear from people that say, you know, I'm online with you guys because there's no one around me that thinks like I do. So what we could say to those people is speak to the genus loci of your area and ask them to connect you with people who think the same way, who are open. Wow, that's perfect.
Yes, go to a place in the town, one of the parks, or just somewhere where you can go into this reverse will, into this sort of gracious pause, or even build a shrine in your house, taking sticks, stones, or something from your town, and make a shrine, a little temple, and have this as your portal, as your gateway to the genus loci. Genus loci, my name is, I wish to be of service to the earth and this area. Please guide me. to meet the nature spirits and the human spirits of this area, that I may do thy work.
Wow. I'm going to cry again. I live in a street called Melody Street, and we've just gone into spring on this part of the earth. And a couple of weeks ago, I was walking down Melody Street, and I was taking photographs of all the flowers, and I uploaded them all to Instagram. It was like Melody Street was literally singing. There was
Great.
so many flowers just in people's gardens, like hanging over fences. And yeah, it was just, yeah, I felt like the earth was singing, just blooming. It was just beautiful. And I took like about 10 photographs and said, this is just in one street in Coogee, like this is just my street, Melody Street. Okay, so music, let's talk about music. You said here, to participate in a beautiful song, whether to listen to it, compose it, or perform it, is to step out of the demands of linear time and approach the essence of who we really are. My many years as a songwriter and performer have encouraged me to go ahead and petition the hidden spirit within nature to reveal its inspirations and imaginings. So how have they inspired your music?
Oh, so much. And during the introduction, I have a third album out, which came out last month, called Charioteer. And that is very much...
Oh, that's the one you sent me. I didn't write it down. Sorry. Yeah, Charioteer.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's my YouTube video of Ride the Storm, which is really a song for our time. No, once you get to know the nature spirits, they will inspire you in whatever field, whatever your craft is. They can come and help you expand that craft. I'm blessed to live on these uplands. The rocks, the trees, the skies, everything here is just bursting with inspiration. I mean, the genus loci and all the nature spirits are very generous, and I just take my feelings, my thoughts, and craft them into songs. And this recent album I've tuned to 432 rather than 440 hertz, which is a little bit lower, and it sort of resonates more with the heart. And I find writing a song about the grace and the beauty of Earth and my interaction with her and our journey as a human being on the Earth, crafting it into vocabulary and placing it on music that enhances the heart force is just such a great thing to do. I mean, I've been singing for a long time. My mother taught me how to play guitar, and I'm blessed to have an amazing partner who's a wonderful guitarist. He plays his guitar upside down and the wrong way around, so he creates these incredible chords and
technical.
Yes, he's very adept with the technical, thank goodness. And so it's my way of singing the wisdom of the land is through the earth, through the songwriting. And it's a delicious thing. And when a new song comes through, it's just gorgeous. I love it. And recording it's not quite so delicious. I mean, forcing these, when you sing a song, music and sound goes on out into infinity. So when you see somebody perform live in a beautiful auditorium with no PA system, what you listen to goes on to infinity. And when I'm being inspired and bringing through a new song, I'm experiencing that infinity of sound. When you go to the equipment in a recording studio, you're having to sort of squash it down into sort of a limited sphere.
Bandwidth.
Which, and bandwidth. And sometimes that can be a bit painful, but writing the songs and performing them live is a lovely task. I've always felt I was a troubadour. So,
do you do a lot of live performances?
Not so much this year, but yes, we do.
Not so much
yes,
this year. When you
we will be doing some live ones on Facebook quite soon. Little mini concerts. I find that people, just 3 or 4 songs is a nice.
Will that be on your Facebook page or profile page? Facebook page.
Facebook page,
Perfect.
yes. I'll
Which
let
is
you know.
Your name, isn't it? No, it's Susan Raven. I have to have a look.
Susan Raven Music.
Right, yeah. And for people who want to hear more of your music and find out more about you, your website is susanraven.com.
Yes.
And your book is on there as well, and CDs, and your YouTube, and you've got a YouTube channel as well.
Yes.
Let me just have a look. Susan Raven Music. I thought it said something else. Where's that song? Susan Raven, singer, songwriter, author, speaker is the name of your Facebook page.
Right.
Yeah. It's a big title.
Thank you.
For people, because I searched for it today and found it. Well, there she is.
I purposely don't go onto Facebook because I just try and keep as much of my time in the creative field as much as possible, and not to be too much in front of the screen. Satch, my partner, looks after my Facebook page.
Oh, does he?
Yes.
So that prayer that you sent me, is that the one that you read out before? Is that another one? I remember I am spirit of nature too. I respectfully. Is that the one you read out before? No. Shall we finish? Shall we finish with that? Do you want to read that one out? The one you sent me on the email?
I'd like you to read it.
Oh, I always get things wrong. Okay. A prayer and petition.
Slowly.
A prayer and petition to the nature spirits and elementals. I remember I am a spirit of nature too. I respectfully seek admittance to your domain, that I may, with grace and reverence, co-create with the beings of your world. Oh, it makes me cry. In the name of love, I allow you to instruct me, and I prepare a place of warm welcome in my heart and mind for your world wisdom to enter my soul. May the responsibility it brings ripen my understanding, deepen my feeling, and guide my willing, that I may walk as a true human being through the kingdoms of nature in which we all share the gift of life.
It's so beautiful.
I got through it without crying.
It's so good to hear it with another voice from someone else. Thank you. That was beautiful.
I'll post it on the YouTube and put it on my website page so people can see it. Oh, Susan, it's been such a delight. It's been so fascinating. I've learned so much from you today. I'm sure there's so much more to
masses
understand.
More, yes.
Masses more. And people can find out more in your book. I suspect there's more in your book. And anything you'd like to leave us with? Any last pearls of wisdom?
One of the key things that I learned from the spirits of the earth, sometimes they're called the gnomes, is that the one thing the nature spirits are most distressed about is when we put ourselves down, self-flagellate. It creates a stench and a clamour on the ether when we so love thyself, honour thyself, raise self-love within yourself, because it's so important. We cannot meet them when we dislike ourselves. They know what radiant, powerful beings we are and what potential we have. When they see us in this sort of mindset of self-judgment, it's distressing for them. So honor thyself.
Be impeccable with your word. One of the 4, what is it? Who put that out? Can't remember his name. You know, it's so interesting. I have a good friend who I had on the show recently who paints angels. I'll connect you two. You'll love each other. Anyway, and she said exactly the same thing in a group the other day. We had exactly the same thing. She came over to my place to do the group because she lives in the Blue Mountains here, but she was in Sydney and she didn't have good internet. So she came and she said exactly the same thing. It's so the message has come twice in the last couple of weeks. So honor thyself, be impeccable. Don't put yourself down.
Yes.
Oh, thank you again, darling one.
Thank you. It's been lovely. Really enjoyed it.
Incredible conversation with Susan. Amazing. Yeah, we had some interesting anomalies with the sound. It was interesting, wasn't it? Had some, pretty sure it was the elementals, but I learned a lot from Susan. I invited her to come in as a guest in the Inner Sanctum next year. We're looking around May, but because she's in the UK, it'll be a different time to the normal time I do it. Anyway, we have to work on those things because here it is 7:30 p.m. my time, and it's like 9 o'clock in the morning for her, 9:30 in the morning for her, I think, at the moment. So we have to work out a time where it suits everybody. Might be late at night here and middle of the day for people in the Europe and UK, and early in the morning for people in the States. Anyway, got to sort that out. But oh wow, I'm going to listen to that again because there's so much I need to listen to again. I can't remember all of it. Speaking to the spirit of place. Oh, that was beautiful, wasn't it? Wasn't that beautiful? Just beautiful. I loved that. I love that. I never know what I'm going to get myself into when I have these conversations, and they always surprise me. Always. I think, I wonder what we're going to talk about. Even when I listen to them on other people's shows, like I had a bit of a listen to her on Buddha at the Gas Pump, we went completely different places than he did. And yeah, it was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Anyway, the cat's destroying the couch over there, so I better go. Cats. And please stop it. And yes, what else do I want to say to you? Oh, I don't know. There's so much to say. Coming up in the Inner Sanctum, hopefully Penny Kelly's coming in. She still hasn't confirmed, but she should be coming in. And John Oneness is coming in. Sage is going to come in the month after. And I think we've got Mother Mary. I think Danielle Gibbons is coming in at the end of the year, December. And we also, and me, I'm teaching deliberate creation, how you flow your energy, how you get more deliberate. But listening to Susan today, just put some puzzle pieces in place. The etheric realm, just I suppose some technical pieces, how manifestation happens with that etheric energy, and our emotions, our thoughts wrapped in emotion. What did she say? Covered in emotion is the way we speak to the etheric, or the way the etheric coalesces and creates this reality. Oh, it's so interesting. It's so interesting. Anyway, big love to all of you, and I look forward to meeting you in the Inner Sanctum or in a private session if you want to have a private session and find out why you're here and what you're here to do, and talk to your mob, or my mob, or the Christ consciousness. So important, the Christ consciousness. The I am presence really is the Christ consciousness, understanding yourself as the divine and living from that perspective instead of the perspective of the ego, which is more rooted in separation and feeling separate to love, separate to what you want, really, separate to joy, separate to feeling secure, separate to feeling happy, separate to that which you want, because the I am presence knows that part of you knows that you are one with all of it. One with everything that you could ever desire. Big love to you, and remember to get the book Awakened by Death. I will see you soon. Bye for now.